Right. And the relationship to the number is so important because you can have usually two extremes of imbalance happen. One is somebody sees a high number and is very attached to that and says, okay, now I have to go into a period of restriction. Okay, I'm fasting for the rest of the day, or I'm, only eating vegetables or whatever it is in their mind. And then eventually that has an end, right? That rubber band's going to snap because that's not sustainable and you're not really nourishing your body. But then you have on the flip side somebody who's seeing that 250 and then going into the shame spiral that you just shared, where it's like, screw it, I already messed up, I am not perfect anymore. And that's, we can, just start over tomorrow or start over next week or whenever that is for them. One thing that we do in Risely coaching, and I want to, PSA, and this, Erin, but we don't work with anybody who is like in active diabulimia and not getting outside support as well, or like eating disorder. But everybody, has with diabetes some kind of relationship to food challenges. It's a spectrum for sure. And something we do with people who come in who are perfectionists is we'll do a chart where it's the week is broken up into obviously 7 days, and then each day there's 3 boxes on the day. And the whole point is, like, as you're going through the day, put like a check mark on when you are really nourishing your body, like you're eating, you're not having this mindset of perfection. If your numbers go high, you're not like punishing yourself in some way. And instead of looking at it as a checkbox for the day, you're actually checking the box in terms of the morning, afternoon, and night. So it's this whole theory of you have 3 chances to succeed instead of 1 chance to fail. And that seems to help people move past the, when I have a high blood sugar in the morning, or when I am at my work party and I have a food that's, let's say, harder to bolus for, not seen as like nourishing in their eyes. It's like, okay, that was the morning time, and now let's go to the next section of the day. So I think too, like mindset hacks like that and tools and strategies to, move you closer to your goal of living more intuitively and freely and not being attached to the number can, are really helpful in the journey. I don't know if you have a specific comment on that, but I would like to circle back and understand, what has helped you most on your journey with diabulimia and that healing process.
Oh God, it's so basic, but journaling. I have been through an eating disorder treatment center. This was before there were any diabulimia specific ones, though. This was long time ago. And so I went to a very basic eating disorder treatment center, and I've had many therapists. And I think one of the problems is that most of them did not have diabetes eating disorder specific training. And I think it would have gone a lot farther had that existed when I initially sought out therapy. When I sought out therapy the second time, I sought out therapy specifically for people with diabetes and eating disorder training, because at that point in time, that had started becoming a movement, because we'd been in the field for a while. But I think the thing that worked the most, because I could do it myself, I could do it at any moment, I could do it when things get hard, was journaling. I would stop and I journal. So, well, 2 things. At the beginning, I would stop in the middle of the day if I was having a struggling thought and journal. And I keep all of my journals. So I have my journals from 15 years ago, from when I walked out of my recovery center, and I still have them in my office on a bookcase in case something happens and I just decide, it would be fun to die again. I can just turn around and pick up that journal and be like, would it be? Because it was not fun to recover from it. And I think letting all the darkness that's inside out onto a page does something really healthy. And it also, when you see it and you see the logic you're using, there's a part of your brain that says, this isn't logic, this is madness. And there's part of you that goes, yeah, this doesn't make sense, this isn't right. There's something in your brain there that's not you. There's something here that is not right. And I do think that once you get it down onto black and white. Now I'm old school, I don't type out, I journal with pen and paper. And there are actually studies that say that journaling with pen and paper is more therapeutic, that it offers more therapeutic benefits, and that because it makes you stop, slow down. It also helps with breathing, and breathing helps with stress. And so I'm a big fan of pen and paper journaling. And I know you're a big fan of this. I do gratitude exercises every night. And so every single night, and this is actually a rather recent thing I was doing, because I thought I was starting to get rather, I think, just complacent. I was starting to feel rather complacent in my life. And there was part of me that was like, how can you feel complacent when there are so much beautiful things around you that you should be inspired by and grateful for, and that gives you such hope. And so I realized, I need to remind myself of all of these things. And so I started doing a three, and every night I do three things I'm grateful for, and then I make one big goal for the next day. And it has all it's been, like you said, my mindset shift. Because the next day I don't wake up being like, oh, there's all this stuff I've got to do. I wake up being like, oh, I've got a goal, and God, isn't the world beautiful? I got to play with my new puppy, and he is so cute, and he discovered his reflection yesterday, and he is scared of it. And I think that is the cutest thing I've seen in ever. And then that's my thought when I'm waking up, because I wake up next to I do it like in bed right before I fall asleep. It's like the last thing I do. So that grateful feeling is the last feeling I have at night.
Well, I think it's really interesting. When you're in a place of not feeling great, right? If you do the things, if you get fresh air and you hydrate and you say the things that you're grateful for and you put down your phone and you're, present with people who love you and you're, hugging your family and you're just like in that moment fully present. Like when you do all those things, our mental health collectively and, individually is so much better. And I think a lot of us think like, oh, like, why does it have to be that hard? Like, why can't we naturally just like be in that state? And I think what I'm hearing from you is like, that you have to do the work, because if you don't do the work, that is when you're going to slip. And maybe your journey, like you're, more likely, to have those challenges with your body, mental health, or whatever it is from, an early childhood compared to somebody else. But regardless, we all have to show up for ourselves in some way to feel our best, some people more than others, but you actively doing the work is what is keeping you, moving forward and living in that space of, just hope for yourself. So if you were to share where you are today in terms of the recovery process and what people who are maybe actively struggling now, like maybe you were 10, 15 years ago, like what would you say to them to give them hope and motivation why, keeping along the path is worth it?
That's a good question. I will say, when I came back from my eating disorder treatment center when I was 19, I reached out to a major diabetes organization in the country and asked for help. And they said, this is an eating disorder problem, not ours, not us. And so I reached out to a major eating disorder organization in the country, and I said, this is what I'm doing. And they said, this is a diabetes problem, not us. And there were academic stats that went back to the 80s. And my aunt, my paternal aunt, my dad's sister, reached out to me and said, I did this. I did this as a teenager. She ate from the sugar bowl, spoon after spoon, which, can you imagine how disgusting that is? So she could raise her blood sugar, so she could put herself in DKA, so she could pee out the calories, so she could get skinny. So I knew this had been happening for 30 years at that point, and no one wanted to talk about it. And all I could think was, this, there has to be something like there. If and at that point the stats were pretty similar. I think at that point the stat was 30%. 30% of women with type 1 diabetes are doing this, and no one's doing anything. And I felt so despondent. And I felt like we were this small niche group of people that nobody cared about, that we could just be thrown away because we were people with diabetes, and we weren't taking care of ourselves. So who cared about us? And we could, if we fell through the cracks, it's fine. And then I thought, like, if 30% of women in America just weren't eating, the whole world, well, America, would be in uproar. And how could it be that this whole group was just thrown away by society because we were just like this niche population? And so that's when we started DBH. That's when I started DBH. And the first thing I did was I looked for community. I looked for community. I looked for community. I looked for community. So we started as a Facebook support group. We still have that same Facebook support group. We actually, our 15-year anniversary is this year. I'm really excited about all of the things that we have planned for this year because it is what it was. It's the backbone of DBH, is community. And if you're someone who's thinking, I'm never going to recover, I'm never going to be in a place better than this, I didn't think there was any hope for me. I truly believed the world had left me to die and that nobody was coming for me. Nobody was coming for us, that we were a left population. And then community happened. One person group joined the group, and another person joined the group, and another person joined the group. And then within 6 months there was 500 of us, and by the end of the year it was at 1,000, and now there are 5,000 of us. Well, no, that there are a lot of us, thousands of us, many, many of us from all over the world. Our admin staff is also from all over the world. So if you go there at any time of the day, you because if it's 10 o'clock, my time, or 12 o'clock my time, it's 8 a.m. in the UK, and so we've always got an admin that's up, to help somebody if it's an immediate concern. We have the hotline, which runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which I would have loved to have back in the day. I mean, NIDA's hotline stops working at 5 p.m., but we all know that like your crises don't happen between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. They go until 2 a.m. in the morning. And so if you want to call Christmas Eve, 2 a.m., we're open. We've got a volunteer to talk to you, and it's someone with diabetes. All of our volunteers are people who have diabetes and who struggle with a mental health challenge. So this is someone who's been where you've been. And I would talk to them and I would call and say, I'm struggling. I feel burnt out, or I feel like I can't do it anymore. And I'd call the hotline. I'd join the support group. You can post anonymously now. And I'd say, reach out for community and find people like you who are struggling the way that you've struggled, because there's nothing more hopeful than knowing you're not alone, than knowing, and we're not meant to do this alone. As a species, humans aren't meant to do this alone. And knowing that we have a community out there, people that don't just have diabetes, but have diabetes and a mental health challenge, and exactly what you have. There's someone in our group who has it. We have a diabetes group, a mental health, we have a diabulimia group. We've expanded it to 5 different groups, so that whatever you want to talk about, there's someone there that wants to listen.
What is the number for the hotline, the crisis hotline?
The hotline is 1-425-985-3635.
So if you are listening and you're actively struggling with diabulimia, it could be that you've talked to people before. It could be like you've never said a word, and this is something that's just been like a weight on your shoulders, weighing you down, and you haven't found the right outlet that feels safe. And but you do know that you need support. Reach out to the crisis hotline. Erin and her team are absolutely amazing, and I think that's a great first place to start, and they can help guide you, and you can have somebody in your corner to move you forward towards living a happier, healthier life. Erin, the last question that I have for you, because I think it's really important that we touch on. So one of the reasons why I have not had anybody, talk about diabulimia, or we haven't put out a lot of content around it until this point, is because I once read that talking about diabulimia more can actually generate more awareness, and people who don't even, I know that I didn't even know about really diabulimia until probably 15 years into living with diabetes. Like, it just was something that I never connected or didn't know about. And it can actually like exacerbate and like, get people curious about what that insulin restriction looks like. So, but ultimately I will say I decided to have you on because I do think that people are going to do it regardless of if we're talking about it or not. And it is more important to bring awareness to the support that's out there, to the problems that it could cause and the complications it can lead to. So I do want to make sure that you speak to the list of the long-term effects and the short-term effects of diabulimia, and why it is so important that people, get support if they are struggling with relationship to restricting insulin.
Yeah, that's such a great question. And we've struggled with that for the last 15 years. There was actually a 2-year period where us and our UK sister organization that we formed a couple years after we formed, we did a media blackout across the globe. We stopped working with all publications because Several clients had come to us who said, yeah, I learned about this from X article or Y article. And we were like, we cannot be the reason that people are discovering diabulimia and the answer. We can't be the cause of the problem and the solution. And then about 1,500 people came to us and said, I learned about this at diabetes camp. I figured this out on my own. I figured this out on my own. Of the people that come to us, about 75% of them say, I figured it out on my own. And then about 10% say I learned about it through a diabetic friend or on from a diabetes camp, and the rest say I learned about it online. It's being talked about in diabetes groups. It's being posted about in diabetes articles, regardless of what we want to happen. And at this point, it's just we can't do anything about it being out there. So we just have to make sure that the resources to combat it are just as prevalent as the information about it. And what has been shown scientifically is that putting more information out there about things like drugs, alcohol, sex, eating disorders, it doesn't increase the likelihood of someone doing it, but putting safe resources out there does increase the likelihood of someone minimizing the harmful effects. And I will say for something like diabulimia, it is the most dangerous. It is the most dangerous eating disorder out there. Anorexia, which has been up until now the most lethal mental health disorder, has a mortality rate of 9.2% when you include suicide. And diabulimia, or well, an eating disorder with diabetes, has a 32% mortality rate. So we're talking about 9% to 32%, and the only difference is someone has diabetes. And so you don't have time really to not to just hope that someone is going to find us. We have to really make sure to go after the help. And for everyone who's listening, who's a family member, a caregiver, a loved one, if you suspect that someone you know has diabulimia, it really is incumbent upon you to act, because as somebody who's lived with diabulimia for over 10 years, I will say that I have gastroparesis. I can't have kids. I am in stage 3 kidney failure. There's a lot of neuropathy. There's a whole lot of complications that come with it that are forever. They are lifelong complications that because of the diabetes that happen with diabulimia that don't happen with other eating disorders. So you can let somebody struggle on and off with some of the other eating disorders until they figure it out for themselves. Whereas with diabulimia, if you let someone struggle on and off for even 5 years, those diabetes complications are going to be there forever. And so what we tell loved ones is, this is not something that you can let someone figure out for themselves, especially because if someone is not taking their insulin, they have no serotonin in their body and they have a starving brain. They literally are getting no glucose to their brain. So that any decision they're making isn't even a solid one. They could be ruled as not making sound decisions by a court. That's how messed up the biology inside of them is at that point. So that's when it's time for you to step in and say, okay, we need to do something. We need to act. We need to say therapy or whatever it might be. And if you're sitting there thinking, is this me? Is she talking about me? If you've said this more than once during this episode, then yes, probably. I am probably talking about you. And please call us and we will find someone in your area. That's what we do, is we find resources for you. And our number is 100% free. All of our resources are 100% free. We never charge our clients a dime, so don't be afraid to call us. We will set you up with a doctor for free. You can talk to us for as long as you want for free. We have clients that call us every night because they can't take their insulin yet on their own. We talk to them as long as need be, and then they call back the next day. And we do that as long as they need to until they can take their insulin on their own or until they get a therapist. And we had a client that we did that with for like 8 months. And then she got a therapist and the therapist worked with her. And now she's an RD and she just got engaged. I know.
Oh my goodness, I'm gonna cry. That is so beautiful. Like, I hope you really understand that, like, the lives that you have saved and are saving. And I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just had to jump in there. Are you kidding me? That's crazy.
I think my favorite story is, we have a client that joined our support group like 12 years ago, and she was in a really toxic, scary marriage. And she was a blackjack dealer who was like borderline suicidal, really didn't want to live anymore, didn't want to die, but didn't want to live, was not taking her insulin. Today she got out of her bad marriage, married a really good guy, had a new baby. She went from being a licensed vocational nurse, a registered nurse, a CDCES, and now she's a nurse practitioner. She was one of our keynote speakers at our conference in London, and she has now been asked to be a keynote speaker at the IADEP conference in March. And her son is now 4 years old. So those are the ones for me, is when someone goes back into medicine to give back to the community, and then the kids. Those are the ones that make my heart happy.
Well, I can't imagine a better note to end on. I feel like we have to end on that high there. Erin, thank you so much for coming on. I could talk to you for another 2 hours, so we definitely need like another part 2 to have you back at some point. Thank you so much for your openness, your honesty, your transparency, your, just inspiration that you've brought to us today. I want to like give you a hug right now and just tell you that like, and not even tell you, but tell your like younger 14-year-old self that day that you felt like there's, nothing else you could have done to be worth seen as a quote unquote good diabetic. Like, I just want to tell that little girl that like you are enough and you are just on your journey like everyone else, just figuring out how to love themselves and to find themselves and to heal and to ultimately give back in the world in some way, which you have done. So thank you so, so much.
Thank you for everything you do for the diabetes community. It's so special to me to get to come on after listening to so many amazing stories on your podcast, and so many of the people that you've worked with or people that I've worked with, and so many inspirational people that have come from through your programs that I've sent to your programs. And I'm so happy to be here. And I just want to say to anyone listening, we go by DBH now, for a lot of reasons. And the main one is that it stands for dream, believe, hope, because those are the 3 things that you get stripped of when you have an eating disorder: are your dreams, your belief in your ability to make anything happen, and your hope. And if that's where you are, where you've lost all of that, your dreams, your belief, your hope, call us, and we'll give it back to you one at a time. Your dreams, your belief, your hope, it can happen. It's all out there for you, and nothing is too far out of reach, and we'll make it happen.
Amen to that. Oh,
not like a phoenix.
Absolutely. Erin, once again, thank you. Thank you to everyone listening. We are going to share all of the resources in the show notes below. You can reach out directly to DBH or to us, and we can help, facilitate that introduction if you need it. And yes, just be well. And you have so much support in your corner that you might not even realize. So we're all here for you. All right, Erin, take care. We'll see you soon. Oh my gosh, I wish we were in person doing this together so I could give you a hug. Thank you so much for being here with me today and listening to this episode of Reclaim Your Rise. To let us know that the episodes we're putting out are impactful, and to help us get our street cred up and let everyone else know that this is something worthy of their time to listen to, please leave a rating and review on our Apple Podcast, send the show to other people impacted by T1D or maybe even your doctor, and share it on social media tagging @Risley Health and @Lauren_Bongiorno. New episodes of Reclaim Your Rise come out every single Tuesday, so make sure you are subscribed to the podcast so that you never miss a beat. Thanks again for listening, and as always, remember, diabetes is a challenge that we did not choose, but one that we can rise above.